Hello, this is Sheila Bender, and you're listening to In Conversation, discussions on writing and the writing life. Today I have with me in the studio Molly Hollenbach and Wendy Chapman, two residents of Port Townsend. Molly Hollenbach is a freelance writer from the west coast of the United States with an MFA in writing and a PhD in cultural anthropology. She writes creative nonfiction, memoir, and environmental journalism. She has worked as a typesetter, interviewer, technical writer, editor, waitress, radio producer, reporter, scriptwriter, and professor of anthropology. A nomadic soul, she says she has loved every place she lived. Her most recent publication is about the ancient rock at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, the Vishnu Schist. Wendy Chapman has spent her professional life as a public school teacher in Melbourne, Australia for 12 years and Seattle, Washington for 20. She has traveled the world, keeping journals of her travels with the ideas of one day writing short stories of her adventures. As a Washington native, she retired in 2012, relocated to Port Townsend to pursue a creative writing life and to teach and share NIA at Madrona at Fort Worden. She is currently writing a memoir and meets regularly with a wonderfully supportive writing group who encourages her with honest and fearless feedback. I like the words fearless feedback. Okay. Welcome, Wendy, and welcome, Molly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're here today to discuss something that was quite exciting that the three of us did this past March, which was attend the playwright Doris Baisley's playwright workshop that was open to the public for the first day and then included a master class on the second day. And the three of us were all together in the first class. Molly joined the second class as well. And from that class, we had a shared experience and individual writing. And I thought it would be fun, since we have on KPTZ just recently aired my interview with Doris about her teaching and her writing and her belief in telling stories through theater, to have us talk about our experience. So, Wendy, maybe you could start by telling us what brought you to take the class.
First, it was offered on a Saturday free of charge, so that got my attention. I do a good job of writing dialogue, and so I thought maybe I have some aptitude for playwright, and that was the question that sort of led me into the chair that day.
That's great. Mm-hmm. We'll talk later about the connection perhaps between short story and playwriting. And Molly, what about you? What brought you there?
You did.
Say a little bit more about that.
You said you thought it would be fun, and I've never had the slightest interest in writing plays, but I thought, hey, it would be fun.
So being a nomadic soul, you just sort of wandered in, and it was fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was really exciting, actually.
And I have to say that it was Mara Lathrop who brought me in. She is the director of the Playwright Festival and wanted to make sure that I knew about it and could partake, and I'm really grateful to her for that. So I want to take a minute to tell people to look up the Key City Players 2016 Playwrights Festival. There'll be a different guest master writer, playwright, but it'll be just as good, I'm sure. And also there are so many other events, judged and juried writing contests for playwrights, readings of their plays, classes. Just it makes it a festival because there's so much emphasis on the playwriting while it's going on. So if you go to www.keycityplayers.org/PT Playwrights Festival, you're going to find it there soon. Right now it says coming soon. Keep checking back. So anyone listening who would be interested in next year's opportunities, please take a look at the website. All right, back to us now. Half a year or so later than our experience, we all had the opportunity to look back into our notebooks. Wendy, what did you find?
Doris, that Saturday, had us do an activity where we partnered up with one other person and interviewed that person about arriving in a new place or leaving a place or a person. And that was how we got started. And I was, again, very surprised that it was going to be an interview process turned into a monologue dialogue.
So at the moment, all you knew is that we had, I believe, 5 minutes to interview our partner, and then they had 5 minutes to interview us and take handwritten, for the most part, notes. Molly, what do you remember about being given that assignment?
Well, actually, what I'm remembering, I'm trying to remember if I had seen Doris's play before we went to the workshop, which I think I had, because her idea was to create a play out of people's own words. And since my background is in anthropology and in interviewing of all kinds, I thought that was a really interesting way to do it. So when she had us interview just the person next to us, it was cool. It was surprising because I didn't know anyone there. And I definitely didn't know the person next to me. So it was like being told to discover a stranger.
Was it strange to be told to discover a stranger?
Yeah, it was. It was a little intimidating because you don't know who that person is, and it was just
why they would tell you anything.
Why they would tell you anything, and we have 5 minutes to get the story.
Yeah, and would we ask good questions?
Yeah, exactly. How well do we interview? Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then when it was flip-flopped and it was our turn, did you find it taxing to figure out what leaving or arrival you would speak about?
I can't remember what I talked about.
I talked about arriving in the bus station at Mexico City, and my partner just turned it into a hilarious monologue. Telling the story wasn't so funny, but she did a great job of turning a reality into real comedy.
Seeing that transformation was part of the event, too.
That was
great. How about you, Molly? What do you remember about you being the interviewee?
You know, I truly don't remember.
Were you first or second in that partnership?
Second. I remember feeling that I'd said quite a lot and it kind of went through a funnel and came out a different way.
So when you heard it back, it was transformed?
Yeah.
Did it make you laugh? Was it funny like Wendy's was?
No, I don't think so.
Well, there were various levels of skill in there, for sure. I very strikingly remember the person I interviewed, and I interviewed him before he interviewed me. And I do, as you do, have less memory of what I said. However, he also didn't stay to do the writing exercise. So although he interviewed me, I never got to hear what he did. And as we talk later, you'll learn why he didn't stay, which was what he was telling me in his interview. So I knew it was coming. Are you prepared to read your notes and then what you made of it, or just what you made of it, of your interview?
Yeah, I'm happy to share what I have. Again, it's all very rough, and it was a first effort. But I interviewed Mara, and this is
Mara Lathrop, the director of the festival.
Okay, she was very entertaining, even in her story. Do you want to hear the story that she told?
Sure.
It was about she and her husband fixing up this beautiful cottage, and they had spent 5 years fixing up the cottage, and she was feeling that she should be thrilled because this is a lot of work and time and effort and love and care, but she was going to miss the rental place where she was because it was surrounded by big green woods, and over the 5 years that she had lived there, she had learned to discern the different plants, and she found real solace and peace within the greenery, and she was leaving that place. That was the story.
That was the story. And what you're going to read to us now is what you wrote?
And so what I endeavored to do was to turn this into a monologue that she would be presented out on a stage, just citing.
So she became the character who was speaking.
She became the character. Shall I go on?
Yes, you should.
I thought I'd be feeling thrilled, overjoyed, elated, but I'm not. I thought I'd be feeling accomplished. George and I put a lot of hard labor, our blood, sweat, and tears into renovating our 1935 cottage, our dream home. Even that isn't bringing the joy I thought I'd be feeling. All the tender, loving care, the time we've put in, and I'm feeling sad, a sadness that comes from loss. I'm losing my best friend. You see, for 5 years we've rented a cabin in the woods, surrounded by so much green. I had no idea how to distinguish between any of the plants. So much green. A big, green, bushy plant, a tall, narrow, green, dark green plant. So much green. Daily walks with the dog started my education into understanding the green wilderness. I don't remember when the change happened. Slowly, like most things. No longer am I looking at a tangle of greens. The woods became my peaceful place. I could meditate in green silence, hear truth, and seek guidance in the rustling vines of the salmon berries. Gaze into the soft velvety lamb's ears, and know I have nothing to fear. No, I am safe. No, I am surrounded by love. I'm leaving this world and I'm sad. I don't like change, but I have faith, more faith that what is ahead has lessons to teach me as well. I might be leaving my woods, but I know my woods will never leave me.
Very nice.
Oh, thank you.
I happen to know that Mara has moved into that cottage, and from her Facebook posts, I can tell she's very happy.
Good.
So she seems to be a very resilient person, and part of being a writer, I think, is you write your way to resilience. So the turn that took in your writing is that she knows her woods won't leave her, therefore she's perhaps readying herself to say goodbye, and she has new lessons to learn. And she has dubbed the area she lives in Cheese Town, and because it's near the cheese maker in town, she's happy.
Wonderful.
So I think writers can use their own tools of writing to move forward.
Right.
Thank you. Molly, do you want to read or tell us first about the interview you did of your partner and then what you wrote?
I pretty much took verbatim notes. So when I wrote it, all I did was kind of rearrange the order. I interviewed the man sitting next to me, and he was talking about how his children were pretty much grown up and launched. So what's next? So really all I did was kind of restructure what he said in response to my questions and follow-up questions. So I call the piece Got Old Faster. My son is 19 and my daughter 24. I see them finding their own adventures in the world, and I ask myself, where are mine? What's next? I need to make an effort to enter this phase of my life with curiosity and adventure. This workshop is an adventure. I can see opportunities coming to life. I've been in Port Townsend longer than I've been anywhere. I arrived in my 20s, and I'll be turning 50 in April. My core parenting years were a lot of work. I had to pay the bills and be in the workaday world. But besides that, I had to stay open to my kids' needs and do everything I could to help them grow. My partner and I struggled a lot to relate to each other while we were both pulled every which way by all the other demands. Coming home from work to a house full of voices when all I wanted was silence. A garden, a chair, maybe a sea kayak drifting a mile offshore. I thought I'd get started young with my parenting, and then when I'm done, I'll still be young. But the way it turned out, I just got old faster. I don't mind getting the AARP magazine in the mail. That's not so bad. It's the waiting to hear my own voice. How do you hear your own voice when you've had to hang up on it so many times for so many years?
You are listening to KPTZ 91.9 Port Townsend. In case you've just joined us, you are listening to In Conversation with Sheila Bender, discussions on writing and the writing life. Today, Sheila Bender is in conversation with Port Townsend residents Molly Hollenbach and Wendy Chapman. They discuss their time learning from playwright Doris Baisley as part of the 2015 Port Townsend Playwrights Festival.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Truthfully, I have to say that on reading this, I'm remembering that I did make stuff up.
Can you tell us what you made up?
Sure. Yeah, I made up the part about, I'm sure he said that they struggled to relate to each other given all the demands. But I made up the part about when all I wanted was silence, a garden, a chair, maybe a sea kayak drifting a mile offshore. He said I just got old faster, but I made up the part about the AARP magazine.
Very good.
And actually, I think I made up the last line. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Read the last line again.
How do you hear your own voice when you've had to hang up on it so many times for so many years?
So the writer and poet in you went to work arranging what you had heard and made something quite beautiful.
Thank you.
You were about to say something, though. You said it's funny how...
Well, Doris asked each person after their after the new version of what they had said was read, she said, "How do you feel about that?" Or does it, what did she say?
She did talk to us, and she did have some ideas for what our piece might become outside of the workshop.
No, but I mean, she asked the person who had been interviewed.
Oh, right.
I think she just said, "How do you feel about that?" And the man I interviewed said, he looked kind of stunned, frankly, but he said it was okay. So, which to me is cool.
Very cool. I didn't get to hear the man next to me say anything about what I wrote because he wasn't there. But I'll read to you. This was Joe, and I wrote this from what he told me. I called it Oops, Sorry, from Words by Joe, my partner in writing class. I have to go. I have to leave. I'm sorry, but if I don't, my legs will stiffen. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I know if I sit beyond an hour, I will stumble when I walk. I don't know where my feet will go. I might fall. Last night at the theater, I had to leave my seat. I told the people in the row to be careful. I could be a danger to them. I step on people's toes. Oops, sorry. No worries, they said. We step on them, too. It's embarrassing falling onto people. Where there are no sidewalks, I put my feet down on the white line, and if I concentrate, I can walk the stiffness out. Sometimes it makes the stiffness worse. Stairs are hard. Is it knee exercises I've done 2.5 years now that stiffen my legs? Embarrassing to fall on people. Netflix, not theaters. Take the stairs slow. And so far, people are thoughtful. Down is harder than up. It was sad for us that he had this situation, and he told me and he told the class and Doris that he'd be leaving soon, and that's where we picked up the interview. So I think the part that I most made up, not really made up, but rearranged, was he said about walking the stairs, down is harder than up. And I felt, what an ending, because he's facing something so difficult that he really didn't understand. After she asked the people who had been written about to respond to how they felt about it, and he wasn't there, she did tell us as writers some thoughts she had about what might happen with our work. And I believe she said, you probably have a poem there, which was not a surprise to me, of course. Yeah. And
she did.
so
It was very moving.
Yeah. I feel like writing in persona was a very valuable outcome of being in a playwriting class, since we're supposed to learn about characters.
Right.
So I felt very, very indebted to that workshop for that.
You know, I think that was really the question she was asking us about how we felt about being transformed into a monologue. I think the question was, did this capture any part of what you thought you had said? And or how do you feel about seeing it go off and become a persona?
Yeah. I think we have to be comfortable with that as writers, but realize that what we see in the persona resonates with our deepest feelings. So they don't feel like they're alien. They feel like they're a component of who we might be if we were in that body or in that life situation, or both of yours are life situations of leaving a home, a treasured woods, and yours is leaving a stage in life. And we can all respond. For something I always remember as a writer and as a writing teacher is something I learned when I was teaching preschool education. I came across Etta Lashan, an Eastern Washington expert in early childhood, and she wrote to early childhood teachers to remember that children are most like us, adults, in their feelings and least like us in their thinking. And it occurs to me that that's true about writers. We assume that people think like us, but they don't. But they feel like we do. If our writing evokes well the feelings associated with human experience, then we have informed and we have brought connection. And I like to remember that even in making an argument in persuasion or et op piece, the best argument is an evocation of how one feels in the situation, not by telling it, but by showing it. And both of you have done that so beautifully. Your images of that you added of what he would like to have, including the kayak floating on the water, and your images from Mara about what the woods meant to her, what she saw there. That's how we feel loneliness and fear of leaving and of difficulty of letting go and transitions and how hard they are to make and the not knowing that we often experience as people. And I just really believe that's the magic of writing. And I think we got a real strong dose of that through Doris's lens about the characters and monologue and scene. What else would we like to say about our morning there? I think it was 2 hours, full packed 2 hours.
I was impressed with how many people showed up at that Saturday, and from people like me who had never done any kind of playwright work at all to published playwrights who were getting more information. I was just very impressed with the range of people who showed up that day, and the transformation of the interviews to monologues or dialogues or whatever people chose to do was so entertaining, just so brilliant and entertaining. I was blown away,
and because so many people came, we got to hear quite a few, which was really very valuable that she spent that much time in class allowing us to hear that work.
Yeah.
The variety was just fascinating, too, because some people talked fast and said enormous quantities of things.
Yes.
It was just amazing.
You mean in their writing?
Well, both. Whoever you interviewed could be a fast talker or a slow talker. You could expand what a slow talker said, or you could try to encompass everything that fast talker said. And I felt that we watched both happen.
Were they each as successful in their own way?
Yeah, I think everybody there wrote something really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I think so, too. Mm-hmm. And I'm remembering her second exercise, which was to imagine that you're in a dark room and then the light goes on. Maybe you're in a theater and then the light goes on. And to write 11 things that we would see, like the light goes up and, or the light goes up on. The light goes up on a motorized bunny hopping across the stage. The light goes up on 3 porta potties in a row. The light goes up on. And she had us do this litany. Do you remember it?
Well, I do, but what's really fun is I remember it differently.
That's good. How do you remember it?
I remember, okay, you're sitting in a dark theater, the curtain comes up, and you see 5 different things in rapid succession.
Not 11.
No,
5.
No, what's interesting to me is my memory is now blurred by how she talked about it in her interview. So she corrected me when I said curtain, and she said the light goes up on, and she said 11 things. So this is great. We all change things, just like you did, Molly. We change stuff. So let's hear from you then what you remember. So both of you remember.
So the writing exercise I have is sitting in a dark theater, the lights come up, and I see 5 things.
All right. Do you remember what you wrote?
I have it right here.
Okay.
Naked male body on the floor facing down, snow falling from above, mirror ball twirling and shining, happy dogs running around with wagging tails, huge reflecting mirror facing me. I have no idea what it means, how it came out.
That's fabulous. I'm going to talk about how that's part of the exercise. And Molly, do you have yours by any chance?
No, I didn't bring them, but that exercise is the one that kind of got me started on a writing thing.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping we would talk about. So can you relate?
Well, I remember the first 2 or 3, I think I said Santa Claus with no pants. Oh, well. And then my mother saying, Margaret, get down off that. And then I saw 2 men ascending a ladder set up against the white wall of a Native American pueblo. And one of the men was kind of a dramatic Spaniard with curly black hair, wearing a cape and sandals. The other was kind of a pudgy European in a business suit. And they're climbing a ladder going up into this pueblo. And who that was 2 people that I'm very interested in. The pudgy man in the business suit was Carl Jung, the psychologist. The Spaniard in the cape was Jaime de Angulo, who was a poet and a linguist who, in the 1920s, took Carl Jung to the Taos Pueblo in New Mexico to hear a Native American explanation of what the world is all about and about spirituality. So there they were, and
With the lights gone up.
So Doris said, "Gee, why don't you keep going?"
Right. I have to say that litany is a very valuable, almost hypnotic tool for writers. So the lights go up or the curtain goes up on. You just keep repeating it, and pretty soon you almost don't even care what you write you don't judge it. Whatever appears, you write down. And it's usually those things that appear without our judgment, without our critiquing, without our thinking whether or not we could really write about it, that entertain us. So you have a story now from one of your lines happening, I think. That was it?
I didn't. No,
Okay.
no.
Oh, I thought you realized that these were all things you could write from.
Well, they are. I'm sure they are.
Read your last one again.
A huge reflecting mirror facing me.
That is one that made me think, oh, Wendy, who writes memoir,
Yeah.
she's going to grab that one.
Yeah.
And Molly, you do have a piece of work that you've been creating from the image that arrived for you. And I think all the images that maybe came before it were warm up to just allowing. Is there anything else we want to say before we end? Because we could talk about this for a very long time. It was so wonderful.
Well, I really enjoyed going back to the second exercise. I really forgot all about it. I was thinking it was the interview and the writing, the monologue from the interview.
It's something you can do every day.
Exactly right.
Every morning, every
Exactly
night,
right.
at lunch,
Yeah.
whatever, and come up with things that are writing worthy.
Yeah.
And Molly, what were you going to say?
Well, some of the things I found in my notes that I was happy to go over. Doris said, "Have some bad ideas too."
Oh, that's a good thing to
And
say.
of course, that's classic good advice to writers or to anybody, really. Let yourself fail. Let yourself be silly.
Right, because silly isn't really failure. And if we lose that sense of play, we're studying with a playwright, lose that sense of play, we're going to be, it's almost like, to me, putting the cap on a ketchup bottle, right? The ketchup bottle, you turn it upside down, it just wants to come out. You put that cap on, you keep it from happening. And if you keep yourself from making mistakes, you're never going to get to the good stuff.
That's right.
So thank you very much, Molly Hollenbach and Wendy Chapman, for being here. I hope in a future program we can hear more of your writing. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You have been listening to In Conversation, Discussions on Writing and the Writing Life with Sheila Bender. For more of Sheila's interviews, please go to Sheila's website, www.writingitreal.com/audio.
In Conversation is produced by Sheila Bender and edited by Charlie Fleischman. Announcer is Kurt Vanderslice.